Hey guys, welcome back to Resistance Chicks. We're your hosts, Leah and Michelle. Today is the 30th of June, the last day of June. We're entering into July tomorrow, which is, leading up to the 4th, which is always fun for us here in the United States. But today we're going to go to Europe and we're going to go to the UK and we're actually going to go to North Korea with Kim Jong-un and President Trump, which is super exciting. But
this is our Sunday show where we cover usually European and UK news, but we also try to expand that to the rest of the world. Because we focus so much on Rodgers Brexit party unveils key policies. He's got policies now.
And that's just it. That's what I wanted to get into. He put together policies, and I think that they must have sat together in some sort of think tank to decide what they felt would be
swimming, and
the most.
They were in the think tank,
and they did some polls and stuff amongst their people to kind of get a feel. Now he did end it by saying, "Listen, all of these things that I laid out, we're going to give you guys a chance to vote on them."
Awesome.
Okay. And I was behind almost everything that he said, even though they are still leaning a little bit more socialist, obviously, than the United States, not than the Democrat candidates. You can't get any more socialist than that. But than what we are currently. But there was one thing that it almost felt like was forced, and you could tell he lost the crowd with. And that was with technology. He said that in the UK, it's really important for technology to be in the hands of the everyday person. Every home needs to have the internet, and it's a necessity like food and water.
I know, I heard about this.
And so,
free, quick broadband.
And in all the transport places, and I thought to myself, Farage.
Remember but they're trying to. Their promises of what they can do with the $39 billion that they're going to save,
right?
With the World Trade Organization, and I really think that as business people that they're on the right track.
Right.
The people in the building aren't there. They're conservatives. They don't believe in that. But if you want to get some socialists on your
exactly,
you know what I mean.
So I thought that it was ingenious
in the building,
and that's the thing when you're talking about this Brexit party and it being inclusive, if you can throw in, and I'm actually okay with this, if you can throw in some socialist policies that include something simple, you know what I mean? I guess I would be more okay with that than an alternative. So that he was saying, they want to lower the cost of healthcare, and they want to make it so that colleges aren't as
he said
expensive.
He wanted to get rid of interest loans.
Yeah.
Interest.
Because they said your loan will double, by the time you've paid it off. And so he talked about a lot of things like that I think will get some of the young people and get some of the socialists on his side.
Direct democracy, hundreds of billions of investment in the north of the country, which has increasingly fallen behind London and its environs in the southeast, where the political class base themselves. We've got much bigger, bolder ambitions than winning the EU elections, he says. We want to be the biggest party in Westminster. He then unveiled a video explaining why he believes a strong plan for Britain's left-behind regions is the key to that ambition, saying it was not fair that London had got so much investment in infrastructure while they had been left to languish. The Brexit party said would save 100 billion quid moving wealthy people to London faster with the contentious high-speed rail project, cancel Theresa May's plan to send 40 billion to Brussels as the price of a Brexit deal, and slash the bloated foreign aid budget. He also repudiated. Now, here's the thing. What he's saying is we're going to take that money and we're going to invest it in our country. Right. So if you're going to unravel some of these things, then as we always say, why are we spending money for healthcare on illegal immigrants when you're not even going to do that here?
Well, and the United States is one of the most notorious for foreign aid.
Yeah.
I mean, so much of our taxes go to other countries for ridiculous things. Like, we're paying like female cops in like Egypt or something. I don't remember what country it was. But it's like, I don't understand. How is it possible we could be funneling millions of dollars to those kinds of things? So what Farage is saying is, listen, if we're going to be socialist and take all of your money, let's at least spend it back on you and not other countries.
So this is a woman tweeted out, this is why Boris Johnson and Jeremy Hunt have to deliver Brexit by October 31st. The Brexit Party UK will destroy the Tory party if UK doesn't leave. There are 6,000 people in the Big Vision rally at the Birmingham NEC today. Mr. Tice was followed by Tim Martin, arguably the country's best known and most successful pub landlord, who emphasized how democracy has enriched countries like the United States and South Korea, while the less democratic neighbors to their south and north respectively have struggled. Mr. Martin was clear that he felt the European Union fell on the democratic spectrum, describing it describing its 5 unelected presidents and railing against a European Parliament where members cannot initiate legislation. He took aim at Project Fear.
So Barry Britt Baza here on YouTube Live says that as far as the internet issue goes, he says people in the UK, if they live outside of London, the internet coverage and the speed is very sketchy, from slow speed to absolutely nothing. So I could understand if that was a real legitimate issue. Then if he addresses that, then it'll really boost his polls. He also says, Michelle, transport networks are very sketchy. Some villages won't even get a bus for a week.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
It sounds like you're like third world.
Oh my gosh. That's what I think that was what he was saying. He wants to reach the people who've been left behind in the outskirts, outer regions, not London,
right,
that has had so much pumped into it, where everybody else is left,
What do they call it? Outside the 45, 41, 55, 50 something loop, whatever it is.
Should we trust Boris Johnson? No, shouted the crowd. He said, big investment in high-speed internet and telecommunications infrastructure, lamenting that countries like Namibia, where he spent the new year, were often better. Lamenting.
You said lemming. I don't know how you said it. It wasn't
lamenting. We're often better served than parts of England. Why don't we, outside the European Union, give public contracts to British companies? And why don't we link that thought with our own younger generation? Yeah, I know more of them voted Remain than voted Brexit, but given the prevailing bias in schools and universities, perhaps that's not surprising. Our young people have been horribly misled, turned off from learning trades and skills in favor of being packed off to university in mass with unsustainable debt. So, all right.
So he's launched this thing for this. Here's another thing I want to hit on a little bit. He hit Boris Johnson pretty hard in this. And I think that for the past few weeks, we've all been kind of wondering, and he's kind of said, listen, I can either be Boris Johnson's best friend or his worst enemy.
Yeah.
Whether they were actually going to go full force to this general election or if it was just a chance to get into the European Parliament and so on and so forth. I can tell you with a certainty that I feel inside of me, not because I have any insider knowledge, but Farage has made up his mind.
Oh, sure.
They are going full bore, against the establishment. They are going to take the Brexit party all the way. They are going to take over, and they're going to try to kick Boris Johnson out.
They're not going to do it. There will be a vote of no confidence against Boris Johnson.
Right.
There's enough people who would vote against Boris Johnson, which would, oh my gosh, there's a little spider in your hair.
Ugh.
Gotcha. Anyways, there's enough people in Parliament, from what I understand, to oust him, and that would call for another general election.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the most likely scenario.
Right.
And that's what Farage is not. He's not necessarily calling for Boris to be ousted, but he is not a strong, backboned person.
Yeah, he's kind of like a fish.
He kind of is a happy-go-lucky person. He wants to kind of go with the wind. He's not, in my opinion, leader of a country in a situation like this.
Mm-hmm.
He's got too much. He's too immature. He doesn't have. His heart isn't in it. He's just a politician. That's what he is. He wakes up every day. Oh, but he doesn't have any He doesn't have any real thoughts of his own. Although his letterbox comment was really funny.
Yeah, it was.
Nigel says that he can be Boris's best friend or worst enemy. It's up to him. Brexit leader Nigel Farage has told Breitbart London that he could work with future Prime Minister Boris Johnson, provided he was brave and Churchillian in office, but warned that he could be Mr. Johnson's worst enemy if he decided to betray Brexit. In comments made to Breitbart's James Dellingpool, Nigel Farage strongly implied the chances of heir presumptive Boris Johnson would make a good Prime Minister who would deliver both Brexit and Conservative policies were pretty low when he responded to a question on the matter with laughter only. But when asked whether theoretically he could back Boris Johnson as Prime Minister, Mr. Farage was more serious, making it clear Johnson would have to embody the qualities of Britain's most famous historic politician if he wanted to succeed. If he was brave, yes, I could support him. Well, of course I could support him. If we got a brave Boris, a Churchillian Boris, great. I could be his best friend. His worst enemy, it's up to him. Farage also gave his top 3 policies for making the United Kingdom great again, apart from Brexit. Noting the smoldering entrepreneurs, we kill them. The Brexit leader said the country should clear away needless regulations enhance infrastructure such as access to high-speed internet in all parts of the nation, and political reform to tackle corruption. I think that there's a lot of kind of misconceptions. Access to high-speed internet is different than having it free. What he's talking about is the infrastructure for the lines to be put down, and that it's not fair for London be able to have the internet and the infrastructure for that, and the rest of the country doesn't.
And I agree.
And so that's an infrastructure thing for your own country.
But he was saying on all transportation, like they should have internet and so on and so forth.
Yeah, well, that's public transportation,
right?
Wi-Fi.
So I want you guys to keep in mind something for those of you that are in the UK and outside of the UK. You realize that Theresa May was voted as Prime Minister because at the time, she probably had as much support and confidence as a Boris Johnson right now. So what happens is a leader like this preys on your feelings and emotions and fear of what else could happen. There aren't any other real candidates stepping forward. Jeremy Hunt is not, in my humble opinion, the guy either. So the fact that it's boiled down to these two is kind of laughable. But I just want you to recognize that you're like, no, Boris would be great. They thought Theresa May would be great too. Okay, so you have to remember these things. When there's anyone in there that makes you go like, on several things, but then you're like, well, but they'll do this. You have to go, you know what? If I'm going to do it, I'm going to hold my nose and vote for Boris, but certainly don't get behind him and think he's going to be the savior of the Tory party, because he's just not.
Okay, and this is very interesting while we're still in the UK. So the Brexit Party has declared war on postal fraud and is launching a legal challenge to the vote riggers' involvement in the by-election in Peterborough. It should have gone to the Brexit Party. It was lost by just a minimal amount of votes, 1,100, I believe.
It was a little bit less than that. It was 983, something like that.
This guy, Tariq Mahmood, was there, and he was already convicted for vote rigging. There are lots of stories of people's votes being torn up. Why was he even there? Why was he allowed in the inner room of vote counting? It's absolutely insane, this Tariq Mahmood. There are questions, and we need answers. And so they're launching a legal battle. Now, Farage this week has said that he blows the whistle on the shockingly corrupt postal voting system, which is destroying British democracy. It was on.
It went off. It sleeps. You know what I think is going to happen while Leah's trying to get that to link here? I think what's going to happen, and don't call me a Debbie Downer, but I think they'll actually concede that there was fraud, and I think somehow they'll use more fraud to like say, okay, you get like 400 votes out of this.
To blow the lid.
You know, not enough to
with our democracy, and
change
postal
results.
votes is a very major part of that. This is not the first, and I know that by doing it now, some will say, oh, well, it's sour grapes. No, it isn't. Actually, as far as I'm concerned, this is about a lot more than Peterborough. It's about a system that is wide open to corruption, to intimidation, to bribery, to abuse on a whole number of levels. I have mentioned this in the past. I mentioned it in South Shields when there was a by-election a few years ago when nearly 60% of the vote was in the postal vote. I mentioned it before in Wythenshawe when I watched the postman delivering the postal votes in an area midweek, an area inhabited chiefly by elderly people, and I watched a party official 100 yards behind the postman knocking on the door, hello, I've come to collect your postal vote. I've seen by-elections where the by-election's been called and the postal votes have actually been issued before any other political party's even got a chance to get its campaign off the ground. It doesn't work. I'm not completely opposed to postal votes. I think if you're 94 and in a wheelchair or serving in the army overseas,
right.
And
that's what it used to be. It shouldn't be like everybody gets the opportunity to do it.
That is the system we had for years.
You know, I think it's weird.
2 to 3% of votes in any one election would be through that form. There are other countries, such as France, who see postal voting as being so open to corruption, they don't allow any of it. Either way, case after case we've seen, haven't we? Tower Hamlets, Birmingham, Glenrothes in Scotland, Peterborough, and many others all around the country, not just perpetrated by the Labour Party, it has to be said. Other parties have also been found guilty of this, which is why, in many ways, my previous criticisms of this were perhaps whistling in the wind. But I do think at a time when there is a big national debate about our trust in democracy, about the way the whole system is working or not working. I do think now is a very important, very good moment to do this, and I very much hope that the Electoral Court in Peterborough delve very deeply into the many, many issues, family voting, so many other issues that we could talk about, and in particular, multiple occupancy households, etc. So if you say it's sour grapes, you can say it, but actually it is time we change politics for good, and my ambition would be, by the next general election, to get rid of this current postal voting system, to get back to postal votes for those who really need it, and to stop the abuse that we've seen growing year on year since 2001.
Now, I agree with this 100%. When I was a kid, and for our American viewers, he's talking about absentee ballots. And when I was a kid, it was just for military people out overseas and elderly that couldn't get out to vote. Mm-hmm. I tend to be old-fashioned and think to myself, you know what? If you feel strongly enough about your opinion to go and get out of your comfort zone, to walk into a building, to take 10 minutes out of your day to go and vote, then yeah, you should be voting. But what happens is when they do these we'll call them postal votes for this show, the absentee ballots, and here in the United States they've started sending, would you like an absentee ballot? Would anyone like an absentee ballot? Because then, and you know, a lot of people are just like, oh, sure, I know nothing about politics. I've not done any research, and this name sounds good, and I'm a Democrat or I'm a Republican, and I'm just going to check the boxes and yada, yada, yada. And you know what? People may do that if they walk into a building as well. But at least they've had to make some sort of conscientious effort of, I want to vote this way because, you know, you get like a survey in the mail and you fill it out and send it back. Because you care, like, someone wants my opinion?
But see, how do they?
There's so much fraud.
How do they? I don't understand why when you have to show your driver's license when you go to get your vote, but you can just send in. I can send in somebody's. I can grab everybody from the household. You can go grab things from people's mailboxes. I mean, it's absolutely rife for corruption. The idea, like, how do you check it?
Right.
How do you check? You can't check it.
Right.
You know, you actually have.
All you would have to do to commit a mail fraud, or the postal fraud or voter fraud or whatever, is to go in and look at the people who haven't voted for the past, 20 years, all right? Get copies of these ballots, which is probably not that difficult to do, to get several copies of these absentee ballots and start sending them in their name.
Exactly.
It's really, really easy. It's not difficult to do.
Yeah. And also he mentioned family voting. And it kind of goes along with something that Patriot Gallery said yesterday, and she did a really nice live stream. If you guys need something to listen to while you're doing a project.
It was really good.
Always has so many bits of wisdom. This one was almost 2 hours.
She's also been the one that's been breaking down our shows into the smaller segments. So you guys can thank her for that, because we've been getting requests for that for a while.
Yeah. So what Patriot Gallery said made a really good point on when it comes to she calls them the pirates now. The religion that shall not be named. She calls them pirates because they rape, they pillage. Some of them do. Pirates do. Pirates all do. Pirates rape, they pillage, and then they grow and grab the women from a village as property, and they use them for property, right?
Good point.
And when you see anybody, any religion, but I'm going to call out the hijab and the niqab and whatever face veiling you have, the reason the men make the women wear these things is because they see the women as their property, and they don't want any other man to lust after or want their property. And they see women as property. When it comes to family voting, you're my property. You will vote what I tell you to vote because you're my property. And they are the essence of, and I can't believe that we would be taken down off of YouTube, and some people are, for what the leftist women, and they hate the patriarchy. They believe that women are, they're the ones who stand up and say, the patriarchy think they own women.
Yeah.
The patriarchy thinks they own women. But there's a whole swath of millions of people who make women cover themselves because they don't want other people to look at their property. Hello.
So you're talking about this family voting that is not something that we have here in the United States.
Well, I'm thinking, I don't know exactly what he's talking about. When I hear family voting, and from what I read about Peterborough, people in the family were like, here, you're all going to vote my way.
Wow.
And taking all the votes, then we go turn them in.
That's crazy.
You know?
Yeah.
All right. So I guess before we go to North Korea, because Michelle already went the Euro way, we'll actually
Because
end there.
if you go into a ballot box, you are only allowed to go into that ballot box by yourself and your spouse, and no one else is going to find out.
There were people like kind of going in. There were people I don't know if this election, but from what I've heard that the pirates followed the women into the boxes, and there's nothing that the people do to stop it. My wife needs me to help her read the ballot and blah blah blah. You know what I mean?
Wow.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
All right. So we're still in Europe. We're going to go to North Korea. Stay tuned.
No.
Oh, my word.
All right, you guys. We will see you back later this week. I'm going to try to do a Bible study. Not sure when, but at some point, Lord willing. So, and don't forget to check out Patriot Gallery's stream from last night, which was really, really good. I actually stayed awake. I was falling asleep, but I stayed awake till the end to listen to it because I was so into it. So I want you to check that out. And thank you, Patriot Gallery, for putting out content when Leah and I can't do it. So, all right. We love you guys. God bless.
Was caught